first and foremost, I would just love to say thank you for being here. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule
Thank you for
to join
having
the
me.
podcast. No, it's truly a pleasure. I was just telling you that it didn't take me more than 30 minutes to reach out to you. Someone sent me a post. So someone who knows that I do this podcast was like, I found this fashion page. And then I checked it out and it was like instant. I was like, I have to have you on, you know. So I reached out to you
Oh
and you were
wow.
so gracious. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh wow, that's great. That means a lot that my work can speak for itself. Like that's
And it,
it's
it,
amazing.
it really does. But I think I'm just going to start off by asking how you're doing. How are you? How are you keeping up? How's life? Just generally speaking.
Generally, okay. No one ever asked
Yeah.
that. Wow. Okay, I'm good. Should I just say hanging in there? Because obviously it's been a rough couple of months for everyone. Like just it's been a lot, but it's been exciting career wise because I've been forced to make moves that I probably wouldn't have made if things were different. Things are moving forward, and I see progress. Like it's difficult times, but it's a lot of progress, a lot of exciting things happening. So it's a mixture. It's it's bittersweet, should I say? Yeah, mostly good though. I just wish I could go outside more.
That's literally life like all the time. There's a mixture of both. It's never always 100%. It's never always like negative. I think especially in the bad times, it's always good to try and figure out what are the good things that are going on to kind of keep you afloat. And then like for you, you're saying you've been finding new designs in that space, in that tough space still, which is pretty cool, right? Um, but then I think it would be ideal for you to tell us what you do. We just kind of just went into it. Yeah, so I think for the people who are listening, just to let them know who is Mufaro Mukoki, what is she all about?
Okay, the easiest way to describe it is I'm a fashion designer that sums up everything I do. I love everything fashion. I do so many things, but ultimately, fashion is what brings them together, and that's what defines what all of that is. So I am a fashion designer. I used to lecture fashion, which has really enhanced my knowledge
Wait,
of
what? For
fashion and
real?
yes, yes.
You
So
used to lecture fashion?
yes, so I was at in South Africa, like you, at Lysof, which is now Stadio Design. That's where I got my degree, and after that, I was lecturing there for about 2 years. So this is my first year doing my own thing. I've been at Lysof for the longest time.
Did you immediately go into lecturing after getting your degree?
It actually happened. Should I say it was an overlap of time because in my third year, I got to cover for someone who needed to leave suddenly, so I got to fill in their position very quickly. It was just on Saturdays. Every Saturday, I was teaching the garment construction sewing class, and then I just did that for the longest time. And in my honors year, we had to do attachments, so I got more hours at school, more hours teaching and tutoring, and it just kind of happened like that. It wasn't even planned. I just kind of fell into it. By the time I was done, I just continued teaching for a bit until I decided to just find my way in what I was
Yeah, and
actually.
how was that experience for you? You know, just being in that space where you were kind of responsible for other people, I guess, in a sense. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's very loaded. That's a lot of things. It's number one. Number one, I was especially in the first class that I taught because it was a Saturday class. It was a part-time class. I was probably almost always one of the youngest people in the class, even though I was the lecturer.
That's
Um,
literally what I'm thinking. I'm like, you're trying to get your own thing done, but now it's like, hey, all this responsibility, bruh.
yeah, but I guess maybe because it was a creative environment, there were certain things that helped. Like they would call me by my name instead of calling me Miss whatever. So that put us that made them maybe more um warm up to me more easily. Because I couldn't be like when you're teaching, you have to take into consideration your own character. I'm an assertive person, but I'm not a person that likes confrontation all the time. So because of my age and because of that, I had to almost be like, you're friendly, you're approachable, but you set the boundary. So it had to be a balance of both. So that was a very interesting thing to negotiate, because these people see you and they think you're younger than me, or you look the same age as me. Why should I listen to you? So you couldn't be like, you have to listen to me no matter what, because they would just be like, why do I have to do that? So it had to be a balance. That was one of the most challenging things. But I did get to learn a whole lot, like, because if you're teaching people something, you have to actually know what you're teaching them. You have to have the
Watch
facts.
it.
You
Of
can't teach
course.
someone to sew something wrong. You have to actually know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I was forced to perfect anything that I tried to run away from before. I had to like confront and be like, I need to conquer this zip or whatever, because I need to teach people how to do this. So it taught me to be a little bit of a perfectionist. And yeah, so that was a good thing. That was a good thing to learn. Research was a good thing to learn. English and grammar, you don't run away from that. I think that especially
That's
as
so funny.
creatives with students, they always think, I don't have to write. I don't have to, but you can't run away from that. You're gonna have to own your
Far
own
from the
business.
truth now, is
You're
it?
going Yes, you're gonna
Yes.
have to own your business. You're gonna have to write business plans and all of that. Your English has to be on point, otherwise people are not going to trust you if there's some sort of typo or whatever. So all those little things had to be perfected, and I was forced to do that through fashion lecturing. So that was a good start to the career. I Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think it just spills into so many other questions that I would love to know. Because now I'm thinking, at the time you hadn't graduated, right? Like you were just filling in for someone, but you were still studying. So you still had work and things you need to do and get done. My question is, how did you find that balance, bro? Like, how did you make sure you? I don't know. If, I was actually speaking to someone and they were like, the concept of a balance is like not real. Like you can't really have everything equal in your life, but you kind of need to give everything attention when it needs attention. So it's like, how did you make sure that happened with everything that was going on at the time?
At the time. Exactly. That's actually the reason why I'm now concentrating on my fashion and my business now, because I couldn't. You can't. At some point you have to realize you can't do everything. But when I was still studying, I was part time for the most part, so I wasn't working full hours and studying full time. So at least there was a balance there with managing the hours and the workload. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, you can't do everything.
So you can't do everything. You really can't. And I've had to learn that the hard way. I think I try and do too much. I really try and do too much. I kind of look at my life, which is a very bad thing, but I've had to learn it the hard way. It's kind of seeing everybody around me and thinking and seeing like, dang, people are really progressing, and I sort of need to keep up. But it's like it's your own kind of race, it's your own journey. Take it at your own pace. Don't rush it. So with that, I've had to be disciplined enough to say no to certain things and put certain things aside so that I can focus on what's important in that time space. But speaking about your business, tell us a little bit more about that. Was this always the dream to have your own thing going on?
Yes and no. Yes, because I've always wanted to have a business in fashion. Not exactly, because it's slightly different from what I thought it would be. So on my page, it was Mukoki official. It was me just posting my designs. It was basically working as my portfolio, me just showing people my ideas. And if you read more on my page, it was more about, I designed clothing that was inspired by what I was feeling, or the things I was exposed to in my life, the things I wasn't happy about. I'm a little bit of a feminist, so you might see that. So it was always about expressing the things around me, the things I want to say about the world and what's going on in society. Those were my designs. And the dream was originally to um, make clothes, sell clothes, have a fashion brand, which eventually, I'm not in the future I'm going to get there, but I realized I through studying, actually, there was a certain part of the design process that I was particularly more passionate about than anything else, and that is pattern making. I don't know if you know what that is. But I'll probably need to
Please
explain it to
let
the
us know
viewers.
in the simplest way possible.
Okay. Pattern making is basically when you figure out the different shapes that need to come together to make a certain style of a garment. So let's say you were making a dress and it was a princess style. Every little piece of fabric that you're going to sew together needs to be a particular shape in order for the overall shape that you want to come out, right? Otherwise, if everything is wrong, it's like a car. A car has, you need to figure out the exact shape of the door handle. You need to figure out the exact shape of the wheel, the size, everything, all of that. It needs to be very precise. And that's basically what pattern making is for fashion, figuring out the exact dimensions something needs to be to get to the right shape. And you do it on paper because you're not going to cut your fabric first, because you're going to waste it if you cut it wrong. If it's the wrong shape, you kind of need to figure it out somewhere else before you actually cut the final material that you're going to use. So that's pattern making. That's the process before the sewing, and it's pretty much I think it's what makes or breaks an outfit, because if the shape is just wrong, it's just not going to fit. It's when you have those fit problems, and the pattern making is pretty much, I guess, the backbone of fashion. If that's not done right, you're not gonna get the right outfit. So I realized I was very passionate about that, and I realized that is the one thing that most people struggled with the most. So because I taught, I came across a lot of students. So I know that a lot of them struggled with pattern making or hated pattern making. They like sewing, but they hate that. But you can't really sew without the patterns, because they're very hard. The patterns are very hard. And even generally in real life, that is the one thing that people struggle with the most. When people complain about an outfit not fitting, it is a pattern making issue. Yeah, and patterns are what brings the design, the style, the idea to life. Because they need to be right to bring the idea to life. So that was the part of fashion that I was very passionate about. And with everything that's gone on with Corona, with everything shutting down, it's really impacted the fashion making, the production process of fashion. Like it's it's become very challenging to mass produce. You don't even know if you're going to sell, because are people even going to buy? They're at home, they're buying different things. So it's become very unpredictable. So with pattern making, it seemed more like a better fit, because everyone will always need patterns, whatever they decide to make. And because they're already struggling with patterns, it seemed like a better idea for me to actually focus on providing that service to people. Which is, yeah, so that's the business I started this year, launched it a couple of weeks ago. Basically my business makes patterns. So some of them are in my design, so that I can just share my design, and people can make them for themselves, choose their own fabrics, make them their own, come up with their own ideas of, how to bring that design to life. So that's what my business is about, making patterns, and providing them to people who need them, who struggle with these patterns, and also just sharing my unique designs in the form of patterns. So yeah, I don't know if that all makes sense.
That's amazing, that's amazing, and it's really different. It's really not what I expected it to be. Because when I approach, yeah, 100%, but it's very unique. It's very different. And I think I'm gonna touch a bit more on that a little bit later. But I was on your website and I did see things, and I was like, this really doesn't feel like she's just outright selling clothes. It looks like there's more to this, But now having you break it down like this really is enlightening, and it really does make sense to kind of see and envision what it is that you're trying to do, which is beautiful.
Okay, that's
love
great.
to see it.
That's
I really
great.
do love to see it, and I'm keen to see how it grows and how it develops, and what more you have to bring to the table with this thing moving forward. Because you're saying it's only
It's
been
only
running
like
for
week
less than
two.
a year.
Well, it's
Week two, you know what I mean? So
It's week 2 since I launched the website. Yeah,
mm,
basically. Yes.
so that's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing it grow and see it develop. Like, I'm a big fan of your work
Thank you.
already, and
Thank you.
it's
That
like
means a lot.
it's only scratching the surface. You know what I mean? So I'm really keen to see what else is there moving forward. My next question is going to touch a little bit on something you mentioned about, the current situation globally, the pandemic, and how it's kind of shifted the market, the fashion market, and you've had to reinvent or rethink or redo certain things and how you conduct yourself. But then when you were speaking about that, you sounded so much more uh, like a businesswoman and like an entrepreneur than an actual fashion designer. So I'm like, are these things that you are, yeah, like, but like, I'm not, what I'm saying is, you learn the skill to be a fashion designer, you learn the skill to be a chef, you learn the skill to be a photographer, an artist, a painter, so on and so forth, all these creative things. But there's so much more to it business wise, so how important is it for you to have these skills? Like, did you learn how to run a business in school?
Oh my gosh, that is an excellent question. You actually don't get taught a lot of that in school at all. Like I had to figure it out on my own as I'm going. So yeah, it was definitely a unique challenge, particularly because especially if you're at Lysof where I was, they're design students and then they are more what they call commercial students who are not necessarily studying the creative technical aspect of fashion. They may be more interested in the business or it's photography and all of that. So the other students tended to get a lot of business knowledge or business modules and all of that help them, whereas with design technical students they're more looked at as more practical people, which is it's crippling. No, not crippling, that's an extreme word, but it's you're left lacking a lot of skills. So I remember we only had one business subject, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we only had one business subject. There were three of them and you could only choose one, and I ended up choosing buying and merchandising, so that's what I did. And it helped a little bit, but it would have helped to have been able to do all the other subjects actually because the other subjects were, there was marketing, there was business studies, there were a lot of other subjects that could have enhanced my experience, because I want to have a business. I want to talk to people. I want to do my taxes and, take care of my finances. And, those are things you don't get to learn that at all. You just get to learn it on your own, if you even can find the information or the right people to guide you in the right direction. So yeah, it had to be a game of just learning along the way. And yeah, and I do think even particularly maybe in Africa as well, like there are a lot of things that are overlooked, such as these skills that we're talking about, business studies and all of that, and just a lot of skills that can arm creatives, people that are more artistic. So it's always a particular challenge. So I think what also helped me was just keeping in touch with what's happening overseas, globally, because then you get hints of the kind of things that you should make sure you know how to do, so that you can compete with those markets. So yeah, it's
It's
been a
real.
lot of
It's real. I've seen it. And I think it's crushing a lot of very talented people. And I think it's purely because they don't know. It's purely because they're uneducated on it. And I think a lot of our creatives aren't people who've necessarily gone to mainstream school for it. They're just really talented individuals who've gotten good at what they do through experience, bro. Like no diploma, no degree, no kind of formal education, just a lot of hard work that's gone into it. And then it's like, but I can make money from this. And then you're kind of stuck there and not knowing how to price yourself, not knowing how to quote, not knowing how to, uh, you know, take account of the time you spend and the effort you put into things. You're almost kind of just selling the final product. And it's like, I think people are getting robbed of what they could be making from their stuff. So seeing you now speak about this in this way, reinvent and have this entrepreneurial mindset, it was very intriguing for me to hear. That's why I asked the question: did you learn it in school, or you kind of had to rediscover it for yourself? And just like hearing that you had to rediscover it for yourself, and that's powerful. That's different because a lot of people don't have that. So I think definitely hold on to that, um, because it's a very difficult thing to come across as a creative. I know I struggled with it. So yeah, I think you're in a very good space.
Thank you.
But I
I
think that's
think also Oh, just to add, sorry, to that, there are a lot of things that lack in our education or what we're exposed to here, but it also means that there's a lot of opportunity. That's the other side of it. Like it's like there's so much opportunity, so many things you could do, so many things you could discover, so many things you could be the first to do. So it's opportunity on the other end of the spectrum as well. So yeah, we just need to
I
recognize
love
it.
that
That's the
mindset.
trick.
You should trademark that statement. You should trademark it. I mean, seeing that there's a lot lacking means that there's a lot of opportunity for us to take charge of, and seize. Um, I'm definitely going to be mindful of that. Thank you for mentioning that. That's powerful for sure. But I think I'm just curious to know what it was like for you growing up. What's your background? Like, how did you end up here in this space as a fashion designer? Was that like always the dream growing up? Was there something in your life that happened that kind of steered you into this direction? Like, what was it like growing up as Mufaro Mukoki?
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think I always knew I wanted to study fashion. I was very much originally attracted to art. I was into art, drawing and painting and all of that. And then for some reason I figured art was the best way to channel my artistic fascination, should I say. Maybe it felt like the more practical way to go because everyone says artists are starving. So yeah, so fashion was the next best alternative. So I knew even before getting into high school that I wanted to study fashion. But I guess yeah. Yeah, so but my fashion is definitely inspired or influenced by my fascination with art and everything art. And I think art was for me art was it was definitely an escape from being a teenager. Being a teenager is tough. It's very tough. So it was an escape. If I was drawing, I was distracted. I was not thinking about too much, or I was escaping into a different world. So drawing was definitely drawing, painting. It was just definitely an escape and just something for me to be excited about instead of thinking too much about life and all the things that seemed so big. They seemed so big when I was a teenager, but
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, okay. But
Small,
then they
small.
seemed so yeah, so it was a way to cope and a way to escape. So it just became something that I just continually went to. I did in my spare time, I did at school. So it was just something that was a constant part of my life. And it just made sense. I don't know. I just never had any doubts, which is funny because when you're creative, you have a lot of people against you.
You have no
So
idea, bruh. You.
so the fact that I wasn't discouraged, that's a big thing because I think it
Hmm.
definitely helped having parents that were like my mom was
Yeah, I was
very
waiting. I was
supportive.
waiting for you to say that. Was
She was
literally waiting to
supportive.
hear that.
She was very supportive, even though she may not have completely understood it all the time. She really wanted. She made an effort to be understanding of. She knew it was definitely a distraction, and it helped me a lot with dealing with things. So yeah, she definitely saw it as a positive there, and yeah, I'm just grateful that she didn't, outright say to my face, this is a stupid idea, like even when she had doubts, like she really wanted to support me until her doing that paid off when, it became clear that this was really something I was passionate about and I was willing to go the extra mile to prove, that this is what I want to do. So, that little extra help from her helped because there was definitely a lot of opposition from everywhere else. But eventually, as I proved myself, people came around. They came to see that, that I'm really passionate about this, and if I really put my mind to it, I can really achieve a lot. So I think there was a turning point after high school, the year because I took a gap year. I entered this fashion show. My friend from school just sent me the application because she thought I'd be great for it, and I just
I read that
entered it.
story on your website.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I had 1 month to prepare for it. I was straight out of high school. I don't know if I was the youngest, but I know there were people that had competed in
The
Zim Fashion
ambition,
Week
though. Well
and
done for
all
you,
of
bruh.
that.
Dang.
Yeah,
That's
so I
insane.
I ended I ended up winning. So that was just like it was a real confidence boost, and then it proved to everyone else that also had doubts that okay, she's really good at this. She can really make something of it. So that definitely helped. Yeah, but it's been quite a journey. It's a lot of you get a lot of comments, you get a lot of judgment, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I
you
mean,
just
you can't avoid that now, can you? Like, you really can't control what people say, what people perceive, what people think, but you can definitely control how you react to it, you know. And I think you've done well to react to it, just like looking at where you are now. Obviously, what people said then, what people thought then, didn't stop you, man. Like, you kept going, which is super, super inspiring. And, like, a couple of things there is like big shouts to the parents, bruh, like for being there and supporting. Because it's not a secret that growing up in Zim, things like this aren't the norm, right? You know, like they're not the norm, right? Like you grow up and you want to do this one thing, and it's like, you know what? I feel like you need to be a doctor. I feel like you need to be a lawyer, and it's kind of set, bro. And you don't have a choice because they pay the fees, you know. And you get a lot of people who are depressed that way. You get a lot of people who grow up unhappy that way, in jobs, earning good money, but you're like, but why are you sad, bro? Like, but it's like I'm not happy. This is not where I want to be. So having yeah, so seeing you in a space where you're talking about how you're in a tough space in the last 6 months, but because of what you're doing, you're finding joy, you're finding peace, and you're excited about that. That's bliss. That's something you can't buy. And I think thankful to God for giving us parents who support that, even though they don't understand it in the time.
exactly,
I think, yeah,
exactly.
I think it's.
Just to add
Mm,
also, with anything that you do, you need constant, I guess, reassurance or constant just not being judged, basically. Like, let's say right now I came to talk to you, this is like a podcast photo shoot. That's something that most, parents wouldn't understand. But I can just only imagine if every time I used to do that while I was chasing this dream, every time I wanted to go out for a photo shoot, if I had those parents that were to be like, but that's a waste of time, why are you doing a photo shoot, you're playing games, shouldn't you be doing something more serious? If I got to hear that constantly, it would have definitely been a bit discouraging.
mm.
So it's definitely a
I
big
think
thing having that.
most importantly, because I mean, it's the parents, right? These are the people you trust the most. What they say goes, bruh. Whether you like it or not, these are the people who raise you, the people who take care of you. So when they say something negative, it hits hard. And when they say something positive, that uplifts you a ton. So just having that as a backbone, dude, shout out to your parents for that. Hey, like, may God bless them
Yes,
for sure.
definitely.
I was actually going to touch on something very interesting you said. That starting off growing up and kind of expressing what you were into, there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of negativity that came from a lot of different spaces, right? A lot of people said stuff that weren't particularly encouraging. But then you went on to say that with time, when you proved yourself, they kind of were like, okay, they kind of got onto your train, right? They were like, oh, hold up, we want to be a part of this trip. Like, then how do you feel about that? Like, in the general sense, where I've seen way too many times when you want support, when you're starting off and people don't really understand or see the value in what you're doing, you're really a nobody. There's like no chance. But you get a break and you do well and you kind of start growing, start doing things that are tangible, things that people can see, and all of a sudden they want to be on your train. Like, how do you feel about that dynamic? That dynamic.
um I don't think I feel anything too deeply because I understand how hard it can be to see the picture. Because even with a new design, I know it's very hard for someone to understand a new concept that I created because maybe it's too different. It's just not obvious. So it's a constant thing that you deal with, that translating your ideas doesn't come easily. So I don't really judge people unless they do something extreme. Um Wait, I was thinking of something else. Yeah, so I think it's I think I've accepted there's some things that there's some people that just won't come around, which is fine. um but it's not something that's easy to understand. I completely get that. Oh yes, I just remembered what I wanted to say. It's because also because of teaching, because I went through design school, and because of teaching, I'm also aware that a lot of people that claim to be into fashion and passionate about it, they're not actually as passionate as they say they are. A lot of the students that that's a lot of because I think even in my year I can literally count on one hand the number of people that actually went on to actually design and make clothes. So it's like, so you get like, yeah, so like only 20% actually really turn out to be truly passionate about it. The rest, maybe they end up discovering that they like fashion, but they don't actually like designing. Maybe they're more into the business side of fashion or merchandising or retail. So it's a space, it's very tricky because you, even the people that claim to be into fashion actually turn out not to really, I guess, maybe have the talent for it sometimes. So it's very easy to understand where people are coming from when they don't get why you're choosing this path, because you could just easily be that 80% that just thinks they have it but they don't. You know, it can easily be like that. So I definitely don't judge people for it because I've seen it firsthand myself. Like the very few graduates that actually turn out to be design and material.
That makes sense. You're definitely a much better person than I am, and I need to adopt your. I definitely need to adopt your mentality. Like I'm not uber salty, and I'm not like, I don't have beef with people like that, but I don't understand it. You know, I don't understand how like you only want to be a part of something when it's a success. I don't know if it's making sense. You know, when it's nothing and if doesn't give any kind of value back to you, it's like I don't see the reason why I should be a part of it. But it's like, okay, now that you're trending, quote unquote, I'd love to be a part of it. I'd love to have my name endorsed that. You know, so but I understand what you're saying now. It's like it's difficult. It's difficult to understand where someone's going, where someone's coming from, especially if they've got nothing to show for it. So I'm definitely learning a lot from you. I definitely need to humble myself and just tone
No,
it down a
it's
bit.
tricky both ways. Hey,
Mm.
it's just it's just tricky. And it's a lot of things that come into play because sometimes some people just need to be looked at and they just automatically think you can, like, let's say for example, maybe in a gender perspective, if you were to be both lawyers, someone were to see the two of you, they're automatically going to think the guy is a better person for the job than you are. So there's definitely some stereotypes that come into it. Obviously because of my skin color, sometimes that's a thing. It's definitely, it's just complex. I don't think we can narrow it down very easily. There are lots of
Yeah,
things that come into it.
it'll probably need its own 1 hour conversation to really get into it and get all the
Exactly,
information out.
exactly.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. It makes sense, and I would definitely love to learn more or think more in the way that you think. You know, just to put myself in their shoes and be like, okay, if I was that guy, not really understanding what's going on, would I really? So I think that's a very good mentality to kind of have. I appreciate that a ton. But I just want to speak about your creative career thus far. Like, I'm not sure how long it's been since you've been in the game, but there's definitely been things you've been able to achieve that you're proud of. And I think the question there is, to date, what is your greatest creative achievement?
Okay, I think there could be so many possible answers to that
Yeah, you can give as
depending.
many as you want. We'll just take a pen and paper and start jotting them down.
I think maybe the one that you could put down on paper that I can put on my CV and be like, I did this, was when I won the SA Fashion Week student competition in my final year. That was huge because SA Fashion Week is like, it's a very prestigious fashion
That's not
show
small.
in
That's nothing
SA in
small.
Africa. Exactly. So that was a good thing to achieve and to put on my CV. But I think most of everything that I've done is just, it means a lot to me. Like I wouldn't want to trivialize any of it because all of it led to where I am. They're just, maybe other things that are less tangible would be maybe the fact that I got to develop my signature style, because that's actually something I've realized. It's not something a lot of people can actually define what their signature style is as a designer or as a creative. because it's something that's very hard to narrow down to, and it took me a very long time to realize this is exactly what I'm passionate about. This is the kind of styles I want. These are the kinds of details I like in my clothes. This is why I use them. It was a very hard thing to narrow down to, and I feel like I've made a lot of progress. I feel like I'll still be, defining it, but I feel like I've really made a lot of progress in narrowing down the direction, the person I want to be in fashion. So that's been something very great.
Mm. I've seen your style. And I definitely love it. I think somewhere in there in your signature style has to be pockets. Somewhere in there is something about pockets. I mean, you
definitely
love pockets. We love to see it, man.
I feel like I can't leave out a pocket though, because I was also reading that there's this whole movement about pockets being sexist, where a lot of women's clothes don't have pockets.
That's so true,
where
actually.
They don't have pockets, or they have make believe pockets. They don't actually work, or the pockets are actually not deep enough. Whereas with men's clothes, they always have pockets, and they always
it's a bag.
Very
it's not a pocket
and...
anymore. It's a little bag, bruh. It's a built-in bag.
Yeah,
deep,
so yes, I feel like it's very unfeminist of me not to put a pocket on a garment. I don't know. That's why I always put pockets, because women also need functionality.
Yeah,
we
100%.
also work. We also need to put our keys in our pockets. We need to run too, so we need that functionality as well. So
I love that. I love that.
I love pockets.
I really love it, and I think I've definitely seen a style. There's an aesthetic that's unique specifically to your work. Like I think I could see a piece and be like, this looks or feels like a Mufaro Mukoki piece. You know what I mean? So I love that about what you are doing and what you're developing and what you're building. And like I said earlier, I can't wait to see. And it's crazy because I've only been on your wave for less than a week, bruh. But I've seen enough. I've seen enough. Your work's made an impact enough to leave that imprint in my head. Just off the top of my head.
That's always so great when people say that. When people see something like, "Oh, I can totally see you make this is something that's totally your style." Like when people recognize that, it's always so great, because you have a distinct place in their mind. So that's always great.
I say keep at it, bro. Keep at it. Keep growing. Keep building. Keep defining it. I think you're doing a fantastic job, truly and honestly. And I think I would have said the same thing on what's my greatest achievement. I think you said just everything you've done thus far means a lot to you, is an achievement in and of itself. And for me, it's almost the same. Like just being able to finish and complete a project, an episode, and upload it. Just having it uploaded, knowing I've completed something, I've done something, I've committed to it, and I've completed it. Oh, that for me means a lot, because I know so many things for myself personally and for so many other people that just end halfway. You kind of start something, get discouraged in the middle, or things come up and you can't finish it, and you never get to share your work. But just being able to share my work to completion, I think that continues to be an achievement every time I do it. So I can definitely relate to you with that.
Exactly. And it's something I was actually thinking about, that people really underestimate, especially for creatives, like how much work you put into something. And I think you yourself, even, you also underestimate the amount of work you're putting into it, because I did art since high school. There's certain things that I've practiced since then that I've made sure to perfect, that now, because I've put in so much work, it's become second nature. But I shouldn't underestimate that. It was a lot of work to master that skill. And just because I can do it faster doesn't take away how much work it actually is. So yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like it does sometimes. And like you're saying, especially ourselves, we're almost sometimes our biggest critic, but we also underrate ourselves so much. And I think it's mostly because there's so much going on in and around us, right? Like I was saying earlier, for me, starting off as a creative was very difficult because I kept seeing the milestones people were reaching, and I was like, why am I not there? Why is my work not at that standard? But I'm like, dude, this guy's been in the game 5 years. You're in it 3 months. You can't be at the same level, right? So I definitely I definitely underplayed and underrated the amount of work I was putting in and the things I was learning because I kept comparing and contrasting my work with someone else's work, which is a very difficult space. But I think you've done a very good job, at least as far as I can see, to have your own thing going on. But do you ever feel that kind of pressure? Not just looking at what other people are doing, but pressure to continually produce content for people, because I guess you have a following, right? And there's people expecting, quote unquote, expecting work and new designs and things like that. Do you ever feel pressure uh, from that?
Of course.
And how do you
Of
handle it? How do
course,
you deal with it?
definitely. It's I don't think I let it get to me as much, especially if it's because I think social media is another whole topic, because social media, it definitely has its own pressures that you may not want to let all of it get to you. So I think a lot of the pressures might be from myself, like we were talking about, from myself to advance my career, to actually do something where I can see what I'm doing. Um, yeah, I think definitely a lot of the pressure is from yourself, and I don't know, it pushes you, which is
It
the
does.
good thing
Hey,
about
it really does get you
it.
moving.
It pushes you, but you constantly have to just filter through the necessary pressure and the unnecessary pressure, because it can definitely be a lot. And the other pressure could be pressure that could be leading you in the wrong direction. um I would say, like, definitely when I first started posting a lot more on social media, I definitely could tell there was, because there's certain things that trend on social media, and my style is very different. It's unconventional. It's not something people are accustomed to and will relate to instantly. So there was definitely that pressure to do something more normal, something people will relate to more easily. And I remember there was even a collection I made at the time that was definitely what I would call more mainstream. And I didn't like it as much as the others, because I just felt like I did it because I knew it would get me the likes on Instagram.
did, did it work? Tell us
It's
it worked, please.
I mean, it did. For Instagram, it worked, but I figured after that, just reflecting, I just decided, yes, I'll try to do, what people will like to an extent, but I also need to be true to myself and my signature style for my personal growth, because I still need to grow and become the person I want to be. So it was important to find that balance of, me staying true to my style, and also me listening to people and, catering to what people want. So it had to be a balance. I think definitely with social media, the pressures on social media, you just need to know who you are, what you want to achieve, and how far you're willing to go to achieve it. Because what I realized when I stuck to my guns and to my style and was stubborn about it was that, like you were saying, now you get my style. Like, eventually people started to see, this is Mufaro, this is what she's doing. This is different. They pay attention because you're different, and they get to know you for your style, and they warm up to it. So it paid off being stubborn and sticking to what I know and what I like. Otherwise, right now I could be doing exactly what 50,000 other people are doing, and I would
But you're
not
not
be happy,
happy.
because I'm just doing it.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm I'm just doing it for the likes, the follows, and all of that. But I feel
Mm,
like I'm just another sheep in the flock. It's
mm.
just, yeah. So yeah, so it's
I
definitely
love that you
definitely has
see
to be a
that.
balance.
Yeah, I love that you see that. You do need a balance. You do need to, I guess, at times kind of gauge and see, okay, what do people want? What's kind of trending? I need to keep up to date, but still have your style. What is so and so teaching? Let me learn from them, but still have your style. It's very dangerous space to almost become a copycat. You're like, but I've seen this somewhere, like, isn't that the same design so and so did, or isn't everyone doing this? Like, so when you kind of remain stubborn and stick to your guns, like you said, hey, you move different. And sometimes it takes time for it to imprint and for people to actually understand and see. But there are people
Hmm.
out there who are
It
looking for
pays
something
off in the
different.
end. Yeah.
Feed those souls,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Feed those people who are looking for something that they've never
Exactly.
seen
It's
before. There
actually.
is a market for it, bruh. There's a market for it.
Mm,
You just need to
it's
be
actually
patient.
the most amazing thing. It's actually the most amazing thing when you come across it, because you don't get a lot of people that come to you wanting you to design for them. They already have the ideas of exactly what they want. You're just basically creating a copy of what's on Pinterest that they want. But when that one person comes to you and they're like, you know what? I like your style. I want you just do what you think would look nice on me. I just it's the best things. It's the best thing ever. And like, or they see something that you've made, because I usually make my designs for myself so that I can, so that I can be as creative and crazy as I want with my designs. And then someone just comes to you and like, I want that exactly as it is. Just make it for me. I want it. It's rewarding. And it's like, if you were to start changing your designs to please the people that don't understand what you're doing, you're neglecting that one person that really likes your stuff the way it is. And it's so worth it doing it for that one person.
I think there's definitely so much worth in that one individual who sees the uniqueness in your work and comes to you that way. I think for me, it just shows, I think you work so much harder on that piece for that individual than you would any other, replica. I don't know. It moves different. I was speaking to someone, and I think this is probably a different kind of context, but a similar approach. I was speaking to this one photographer, and she basically said that she's made her services ridiculously expensive, but that's because that's how she views herself. That's how she prices herself, how much she's invested into this thing and the work that she knows she can do. But she's like, the fear is that you don't get any clients, you don't get any customers. But then she realized that the ones that do come, the one that does come every week, as opposed to charging less and getting 5 a week, the one that does come every week is probably covering the price of 5 different shoots if you're charging less. But it just shows that they really want you as their photographer. They could have gone to anyone else charging less, but having them come to you directly like that, it's like, dang, they really want me as their photographer. And you get so much more time to focus on one project and do it to the best of your ability. So I guess in your sense, if you were that person kind of doing whatever, you'd have so much work to do, and you'd be splitting your time into like many different projects and trying to deliver it. But it's like when that one person sees your work and you're like, okay, this is who I want to design my piece. It's like, you could have gone to anyone, And so I think that's priceless.
And you actually touched on something very interesting, charging. That's a very interesting challenge for any creative, to actually charge for your time. And it's very interesting. I've actually been asking people that are not creatives, like how much they charge per hour. And I've literally realized that they charge like 4 or 5 times more than me, at least. And they're usually the first people to complain about your prices. And it's always very interesting. Like, why is my 60 minutes worth less than yours? It's very it's interesting. It's a very challenging space to be a creative, because there's just a lot of stigma that just makes it hard and difficult.
It's very challenging indeed, and I agree with you. And I think I'm so much like you. Sorry for cutting you off, but I'm so much like you in the sense that I sit here and I charge a certain amount an hour, but I move around and ask around, and exactly like you're saying, it's 4 or 5 times my price. And then sometimes I feel like, what am I doing wrong? Where am I missing the mark? And it's this, like
I think the funniest part is when those people complain about your prices. The people with 4 or 5 times, like,
it's the negotiating for me. It's the negotiating for me. But I think it definitely does stem from viewing, I think most, if not all, creative businesses, jobs, as not something that's legitimate. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a hobby. Anyone can sew, anyone can take pictures, anyone can be a DJ at my wedding. Why do I have to pay you so much? But it's not understanding not just the time that you're putting in there in the moment, but the time and money you've invested over time to get you to where you are, in terms of the level and the quality of work that you produce now. Right? It's a lot. It's a lot. And I think there's a lot of education and educating that needs to be done, especially in our immediate environment, Africa, because it's really not taken seriously. It's really not valued and seen as something that should be given that kind of money, which is sad. It's rough. And then you downplay, you downsize your prices because you want the gig at the end of the day. For me, that's so difficult. How do you navigate through that? If someone comes and you're like, you know what, this is what's up, this is how I feel, can you cut your prices? Do you always say, you know what, if you can't pay it, move on, or you're like, you negotiate sometimes?
I think most of the time I would say I let it go. It's not worth, because I could be spending my time doing something else that's actually going to push me forward in my career. Let's say at the moment I just launched my website and there's a lot of work that's going into it, and for me to stop and take time out of that schedule to do something that's gonna cost that I'm gonna get like 20-30% what I should be getting, it's not worth the time. So I really just weigh, yes, I could be using that time to advance myself in a different, I mean, it's not going to be in monetary form yet, but it's going to pay off eventually. So I would rather not. I mean, I'm willing to negotiate to an extent, but they just limits because at the end of the day, it's a hell of a lot of work, and there's only so far down I can go, and yeah, that's pretty much.
And I think ultimately you don't become a wobbly individual because people end up knowing you for that. I had the same issue. I definitely negotiated, bro. Like every time someone would cry a little bit, they'd be like, and then I'd be like, okay, cool, you know, 25% off, 10% off. But then I became known as the dude who charges 250 Rand an hour, but only receives 100 Rand. Legit. So everyone who is coming to me now was like, but you gave so and so a discount. But you gave so and so a discount. It became very bad. Like the image was terrible, bruh. So I had to change. I had to stop and be like, if you're not gonna pay, then it's cool. Let's move on. I think you can find someone else. So I think you really need to assert yourself and make sure that people know what you're worth from the get-go, and there's no indifference and imbalance, because people end up chatting. It's like, why are you paying 250 Rand? There's this one photographer who took 100 Rand, you know, and then it's people in my DM asking to be shot for 100 Rand, which isn't it, you know. So I appreciate your stance and approach to it.
I mean, it's not easy, but yeah. I think with any creative, you just have to be prepared that for the first significant chunk of your career, you might not be making much. You're like investing your time into building yourself into the person you need to be or you want to be. I think that's just something you have to accept. Otherwise, if you're going to be in it to make money immediately, you're going to make decisions that they might be detrimental to you in the future. Yeah, because
you're definitely gonna get wrecked.
Yeah, so it's part of
I love that.
the experience.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. I think just looking now at where you're at, got a degree, got a little bit of teaching experience, just launched a website, you know, making designs here and there, and doing what you're doing and finding yourself in this space. It's like there's things that you've learned, right? There's things that you've been taught, and things that you've seen other people do and kind of learned from. But like, what's been like the most intense lesson that you've learned from experience? Like you didn't know this thing and never experienced it and never taught it, or you just had to learn it from experiencing it, either life in general or in the creative space. What's been the hardest lesson you've had to learn?
Wow. that's a big question. I'd actually never thought of it that deeply. I think the harshest lesson that anyone learns is that transition from being a school child to a working person. That was like, life totally works completely different than how they make it seem when you're in school. And when you're in school, you're taught when when you're in school, you're taught if you get the highest mark in maths, you're gonna get the prize for maths. You're the best, blah blah blah. In the real world, it's not like that. You could be the best mathematician, but that's not going to mean anything. People might not pay attention to you still. So I think that's definitely a harsh transition for anyone to realize that those fake rewards that you got in school, they don't exist in real life. There's real challenges that you face because of your skin color, because of your gender, because of so many things. And the real world, it's just I think I've realized that it's all about making money. That's what it is. Everyone is just trying to make money.
It's
Everyone
what
is busy.
benefits me. If it doesn't benefit me, get out of my office. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I think that's been the harshest lesson, realizing that life works completely different than the way it was made to seem when you were growing up. That's definitely a hard thing to adjust to. Yeah.
And then I think then I would love to know. I mean, of course, you're in business to make money. You need to put food on the table. You need to take care of yourself. But what is your philosophy? What is your ideology? Why do you do what you do? You know, what do you live by? What principles do you live by? I think generally speaking. And don't be afraid to say I live for money.
I live for money. I don't think I do, because otherwise I wouldn't have done half the things I've done, because I haven't made much money from it yet. So I don't think I can say money is a real driver.
Yeah, so let us know, where's your heart and mind in all of this?
I think the first thing that came to mind was my WhatsApp. Is it a status or that thing that's always on your WhatsApp?
Yes.
That people see.
I know the one you're talking about. It
Yes,
used
so
to be
mine,
the status, and then they brought out the statuses, and now I'm confused. I don't know.
yeah, it's getting a new thing. Yeah, so mine says chase the wind and touch the sky. So it's a line from a song from Brave, the Disney princess movie. So I guess I just liked the whole concept of her. Like, she was just a very brave person. That literally sums up who she was. She was brave, she was a woman, she was fierce, and she didn't need a male for any of that. So chase the wind and touch the sky. That's my approach to life. Just go after what seems impossible. Don't let judgments or anything from people hold you back, because at the end of the day, everyone's learning about life. No one actually has the answers. So you need to just do what makes you happy. Chase that happiness that's gonna take you to where you want to be. Yeah, I think I think it definitely stems from the things I've had to overcome being an artist, and always having to face that judgment of why you even chasing that career path. People questioning your intelligence just because you're an artist. I think because it's paid off, because I've stuck to my guns and it's paid off, and it's proven that I'm this person that's worth paying attention to, worth what I'm doing is worth it. I've just realized it's just be yourself, like back yourself up, don't give up on yourself, because I think you have something to offer, and you can't let people tell you what's what. You need to chase your happiness. You have to live your life. You have to live your life for yourself. You have to chase the wind, touch the sky, be that happy, be that carefree, and yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense, but yes.
You are. I feel like God sent you to discipline me.
To what?
And tell me some harsh truths. To discipline me and tell me some harsh truths, because
about what?
That's literally the kind of things that I'm trying to work on. Not letting the people around me kind of define who I am. Not letting what people say define who I am, and really going for what I truly love and enjoy, no matter what, to reach for the sky, literally. Not like an extreme hectic battle, but it's something that I ask myself. I question myself every time something goes on. I'm like, is this thing even worth it, right? Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right space? But I know it truly makes me happy when I'm in it. When I'm sitting here chatting to people, meeting new people, learning new things, I'm my happiest. I'm peak happiness.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. Really,
no problem.
I appreciate it.
Just to expand on the other part of that saying, it's chase the wind, which is something that seems like almost impossible. And that's what most of these things that we're trying to do, they seem impossible. They seem impossible to people. They seem like very crazy ideas. So, but because it's the wind, there's just such a freedom and such a fulfillment that comes with doing that. So even if it seems crazy, even if it seems like it's not going to work, just do it anyway. If it doesn't work, you are happy in that moment anyway. So it's not a loss.
So we have a fashion designer and a poet on the show today. Who would have thought? Poetic, is it not poetic? No, that was like it makes so much sense. Like chasing the wind. Like why would you chase the wind? Like it seems impossible, right? Literally what you're saying. And so do all these dreams, especially going against the grain, going against the norm and what everybody else expects you to do. And you're like, no, this is what I want. It's like, okay, how am I going to achieve it? How am I going to do it? And I think kind of like the character in Brave, like you said, she didn't need anybody else. She didn't need a male to help her through it. She just went at it. And it's kind of like that sometimes for a lot of people, male or female. You're kind of alone. Like no one really does understand. People are patient with you and they're kind of there with you on the journey, but no one really fully understands it the way you do. And sometimes they never will, which makes it so much more difficult. But it's like keep chasing the wind, like keep going at it, no matter what. Which is easy to say now, but so much more difficult to practically do, but not impossible. Definitely not impossible to achieve. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that a lot. Thank you. Do you work alone? Like there's so much going on on Mukoki Lab, and just like the presentation of the website itself and the work that you're doing and the designs. Do you work alone? Like it's hard to believe.
At the moment, yes, actually, I work mostly on my own. Maybe also because I'm still quite small, but obviously I do want to expand in the very near future, so I'm going to have to get some help with certain things. But I think that stems from me being a bit of a perfectionist. I guess just that feeling I'm the only one that can do this right, which is it's a bad thing because you need the help. You can't do everything. We've said that already before. You can't do everything. So I need to delegate. I do get some help sometimes from a seamstress who helps me if I have orders or anything like that, but usually I just I do most of it myself.
You run it by yourself.
But wow. I guess the trick the trick has been, I guess, to pace myself. You can't expect to achieve everything so fast, so I've just had to do it bit by bit and basically just take my time with it. But eventually I'm just going to have to take the leap and expand, grow, have more people helping me, hopefully pass down my knowledge as well. So yeah. But it's mostly me at the moment.
It makes sense, and I think most creatives are like that. It's like I've developed this style, I've developed this way of doing things that's unique to me. It's very difficult now to bring on someone and teach them and then have them replicate it to the T. It's hard to trust people that way. But the humility and understanding that you can't tackle life alone. You can't tackle a business alone, especially if you wanted to grow and become something so much more bigger than it is now. You have to trust people. I think ultimately trust God, through that process as well. So I think it's gonna take time. it's definitely gonna take time. I feel the same way. I'm like, you might mess it up. You might not edit it the way I want you to edit it, but
exactly, and it gives me such anxiety. Like with some of the stuff I do right now, like there's so many little aspects of the process, that it's very hard to go back to it if there is a mistake. So if someone else was to do it, I'm not gonna know that there was a mistake at some point. So I'm not gonna know to go back to it, and that just makes me just so anxious. Like, oh my gosh. So it's very hard.
No, it all comes in good time. The more you grow, the more work comes through, the more you realize that, okay, I think it's about time. Everything has its time according to God's will. So we just keep praying that, I guess, you get the right people in your life. You're able to find the right people who see the vision that you have, understand the goal that you're trying to achieve, and really try and emulate that as best as they can. Hop on your train, help this thing grow. Definitely looking forward to see that happening. But I only have two more questions left, and that's specifically about the Zimbabwean creative community, creative space, just in general, and maybe more specifically fashion related. But what do you think this space has done well? Like, what is it doing good and should maintain doing, and where do you think it's lacking and can improve?
Okay, I would definitely say in the last couple of months, well, since the pandemic started, because people have been forced to go onto social media, definitely I think a lot of creatives have been exposed, or people have been exposed to them more. Like there's just definitely more awareness towards Zimbabwean creators, which I hadn't seen before. So that's really, I think that's been a really great thing, like just having that awareness of the creators that are in your space from the people in Zim. That's been, and people actually support, if they can, because there's been actually, I think, people that are getting legit proper business from it. It's been great marketing generally for the creators, which means so much to them, right? So and definitely I think there's just a lot of natural talent. It's just, I guess, unfortunately there's not enough resources, or there aren't even any schools, like particularly in fashion. I know there are not really any proper schools that are going to teach you all the skills you need to actually develop into a full designer that you need to be. But the talent is definitely there. And I think, especially with photographers, I think I've seen a lot of progress with photography. Like there's just been a boom for photographers. There's people with such great talent and all of that. So that's really worked out great for photographers as well. So it's definitely a growing space. It's a space, like we said, that has a lot of potential. So that's a great thing about it. Yeah. And then should I talk about the negative?
Oh yeah, we definitely want to hear the negative. Where could it do better? It's like not necessarily like a bad thing, but like what could we improve on?
I mean, of course, definitely. I've definitely mentioned that we don't actually have institutions and schools that can benefit a lot of creatives, artists, photographers, and all of that. Even and fashion designers, obviously, like there aren't a lot of places where people can actually properly develop their skills. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to build and grow something there. Maybe we need more schools. We need, a more creative community. Building such things. And then I do think there's been, like I mentioned, social media has increased awareness for creatives, but some of it is a lot of the people that get the, should we say, publicity from it or whatever, they may actually be people that are not as good as some of the people that are actually out there. So you do get people that are very good that don't get as much exposure as other people. So there's definitely people that are more popular but not as talented that are getting the attention. So there's definitely people that need to be looked at that have a heck of a lot of talent that just needs a bit more of a boost, because that's what I've noticed with Zimbabweans. They're loyal to a name. And other creators
isn't that human beings in general though?
It is, but maybe
it's just kind of how we function too.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely challenging for some people that are actually talented but just not as popular. Yeah, and then also particularly to fashion, why I ended up going for patterns, like I said, is because there's definitely a challenge getting raw materials here. Fabric is very hard to come by. It's very hard to come across. You get some fabrics, but a lot of the fabrics that you actually need, you don't get. The quality of the material is not quite as great as you would get it out there. So there's a challenge in getting, the raw materials that you need to do what you need to do. So that's a very huge challenge. Yeah, charging, we've mentioned charging. That's I think definitely
that needs to be straightened out.
Yes, I've heard people, I think I heard a photographer say he charged like $30 or $25 for some. It sounded very low, so ridiculously low. I'm like, how are you surviving on such
How are you
little?
surviving? But I
Yeah.
think you know what happens in the end is that as well, like you're saying, especially in the photography space, it's becoming very almost quote unquote saturated. There's so much of them coming up, and for me, that's not a bad thing. I'm okay with it. I'm super cool with it. But what happens now is the pricing becomes so much more competitive. It's like if I can price myself at $15 an hour, then I think I can get as many customers as I can because that's what ends up happening. People are like, "Why are you charging $75 an hour when there's someone charging 15?" Obviously, I'm gonna go to the person who's charging 15. So that's what kind of happens in the space now. That's kind of what happens with the pricing. It's not like they don't see the value in the work that they have or whatever, but it's like, ish, people are so loyal to this name. Maybe if I reduce my price, they might, pay attention. And that's kind of what
Yeah,
happens, which is kind of sad to look at.
it is. It's
It's kind of
very
rough to
sad,
look at.
and yeah. So I think that's something that's definitely very challenging for a lot of creatives. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, I just think there's just a lot of talented people that don't get enough opportunity to, to grow to where they can grow to. That's just something that's just very sad here because yes, we've said there's a lot of potential here, but yeah, so yeah, I
It's
just feel for a lot of
definitely a
people.
work in progress. It's definitely a work in progress. And I think we do have spaces and platforms that are definitely trying to uplift certain content creators. Obviously, not as much as we'd love, but I've seen a lot of content creators on YouTube, content creators on Instagram, pages that have been created dedicated to showcasing, underground talents, be it other YouTubers, musicians, artists, things like that. But again, it's almost tight knit. It's like it's a certain click type of thing, right? Like not everybody's really getting the opportunity to get a space to speak. Um, but hopefully that can change. So hopefully we can think and reinvent and figure out ways to do it, um, you know, at low cost as well, right? You don't want someone to have to pay tons of money or invest too much to just get their name seen, to just get their work seen. So hopefully we can develop something with time, with patience, and with a lot of intentionality. It's one thing to talk about it now here and point it out, but it's another thing to just come off the platform and actually start thinking about ideas in which we can make things happen ourselves.
Exactly. I
Um,
think I think that sorry, that also just reminded me of something. I make patterns. But I actually started making these patterns digitally this year. Because traditionally I was taught to do it manually, and I think that's like that with a lot of things here where people are still a little behind, and there's actually a lot of technology that can actually be a solution to a lot of the problems we're facing because um I don't know. I think just us getting more educated or more exposed to what's actually out there could actually be the solution to some of these problems. Because when I was researching these pattern making softwares that I'm using, I actually realized because a lot of people want personalized stuff, but it's a lot of work to produce garments. Like it takes a long time. But these softwares that they are now creating these days, they're actually making the process a lot faster, and it's actually reducing costs in some ways. So these actually solutions that could actually already be there, especially in the digital space, and especially in my field, like with fashion was very slow to take on technology and digitization for some reason, but because we're forced to because of corona and all of that, actually realizing there could be so many solutions that could come from embracing
mm,
technology. So yeah.
I was actually going to ask that actually, and I forgot. It's that how are people receiving your online platform? Like how has been the response in the Zimbabwean space to you having this online thing going on?
Okay, so it's very new, so it's a bit slow, but I think people have actually been good with their responses. They're very excited because obviously, like I told you, pattern making something that's very challenging for a lot of people. So such a solution has been something that people seem to have been waiting for. So that's been great. But obviously, definitely, there's still a lot of education that I would need to do on my part to actually teach people how to use this product, how to actually print it properly, and all of that. So I think people are very open to technology. They're not closed off. I think they're very open to it. You just need to educate your customers and so that they actually know how to use it. So I think there's just definitely a lot of potential and people are open to it. So that's been great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Like you said, it's just in its introductory phase, so it's going to take some time for it to develop, people to jump onto it. But again, there's a lot of educating that needs to be done, not just with you, of course, but with people as well, to know that these platforms exist that will make their lives so much easier. So let's keep pushing the brand. I mean, as much as we can, and get it out there. I definitely see the vision and I see the potential that your company has to do great things, and hopefully one day hosts, the biggest African fashion week in Harare. We'd love to see that. We'd definitely love to see that.
That would
Am I being over ambitious?
That would definitely be a dream.
I hope I'm not being over ambitious.
No, not even. That's what we like. I mean, there's no point in dreaming of something that seems, easy to do. Like sometimes I have to do research, like marketing research, like especially on social media to research, so that I can grow my account just to see what people are doing. And there's no point in me looking at someone who has like the same following as me and, does something similar to me because they're already at where I am. So why would you
see your vision?
Yeah, why would you want to stay where you are? You always have to look. You can even look at an account that has like, I don't know, 100,000 followers because that's where you want to go.
It's like, what are they doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, always being big.
That's revolutionary. That's gonna change my life. I'm telling you now. I've been doing it all wrong, man. I really have been doing it all wrong.
I'm glad.
But I mean, thank you. And I can't say thank you enough, Mufaro, for being here again, taking time out of your schedule to sit down and chat. You've been super patient, running around and making sure that all the technical stuff is sorted out. I appreciate it a ton. It's been fantastic speaking to you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was actually very nice.
Yeah, I think it would be nice. I think my dream now is to hopefully one day take some photos of some Mukoki Lab pieces. That would be fantastic.
Oh wow, that would be amazing.
That would be then my new greatest achievement.
Oh wow, awesome.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
No, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.